and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 316, and today's date is March 17th, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Perfect Economic Storm is Now Forming, and It Will Collapse the Economy. And for those people who are celebrating St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. We're going to head out to Cyprus, and what is happening out there? Well, pretty much the same thing that's been happening all along. They used the bail-in documents. It was a test. They wanted to see if the people would riot or they would rise up. They did absolutely nothing. They've been stuck in this capital control type of situation for over a year now, and right now the Cyprus finance minister is out there, and they're saying that, you know what, maybe by the end of spring of this year we will lift the capital controls. And the people of Cyprus, they still have a ban on cashing in checks, and a €300 cash withdrawal limit daily remains in force. So they still can't get their money out. And we have to think back. When they first implemented the bail-ins, they told the people that they would only have these capital controls in effect for about 2 weeks. Then it went into a month, then it went into 3 months, then it went into a year, and now it's the end of spring, which is really the end of May going into June at this point. And you know what's going to happen. As we approach that date, they're going to extend it, because what are they afraid of? They're afraid of every single person running to the bank and taking all of their money out. And you also have to remember, they also told the people of Cyprus that they were only taking out 8% or so, and then it went up to a 10, and then it went up to 15, then all of a sudden everyone was getting 47% taken out of their savings. So we can see this was completely planned. Nothing has changed. All they do is continually they extend the timeline of when they're going to remove the capital controls, and again, they're not going to do it because they know what's going to happen. They know the people are going to make a huge run on the banks. But again, all of this is in preparation for this perfect economic storm. And what I mean by that, if we take a look around and we see what's happening, and I'm not talking about the stock market, we know that's in a bubble. We know the Fed, the U.S. government, the banks, they're all controlling that. Money has been pumped into that to pump this up to as high as it possibly can go until the entire system comes crashing down. But if we look at other indicators, and we look around the United States, and especially in Europe right now, because this is really mimicking the depression of 1929. We're seeing Europe is in a recession/depression. I mean, the amount of unemployment, the amount of debt that these countries have, people are finding it very difficult to make ends meet, and it's really very, very hard on the people. But if we look in the United States also, we see indicators. We see retail businesses going out of business, one retail chain after another, and we see store closing, one retail chain after another. Now, I did report that Sbarro's, declared bankruptcy. They closed about 155 stores. Quiznos now is also declaring bankruptcy. And now there's a report out there that Office Depot is expecting to shed some of the excess stores created by its recent purchase of OfficeMax. So we're going to see additional stores close. And again, the same thing with Men's Warehouse, with JOS Bank, and they're going to be closing more stores. And we're going to see this trend continue as we go further into 2014, because again, all these retail corporations, they were depending on the holiday season to get them through the entire year. And guess what happened? The holiday season did not go anywhere. The sales were completely down. They pumped the stores full of inventory. They can't get rid of it, and they know it, and they're realizing that they need to get rid of all these stores. We got to lay off all these people, and this is why we see Macy's, JCPenney, Radio Shack, all closing hundreds of stores, Sbarro, Build-A-Bear, all doing the same exact thing, Barnes & Noble, Target, Best Buy, and we're going to see more and more of these stores start to close. Now, what else are we seeing that is setting up this entire perfect storm? Well, the housing market. And we realize right now the housing market is in terrible shape. Of course, when from the outside and from what people are seeing, they're seeing home prices going up, but they're reaching the top of the bubble here. But what we're seeing are all the indicators leading up to the implosion of the housing market. We see, as of 2013, between August and October and going forward, we see many of the major mortgage companies going out of business or laying off thousands upon thousands of people. We also see mortgage applications plunging by 66%. Home builder confidence misses expectations again. Future sales expectations dropped once again to 10-month lows. The West plunged and the Northeast dropped to multi-year lows. And guess what? I mentioned this on Saturday. Blackstone, they are trying to unload as many properties as they possibly can because they realize the housing market has reached the top and now it's time to get out. They need retail investors of homes or the ordinary everyday person to purchase these homes to get rid of it, but they are having a very rough time because people just don't have the capital to purchase these homes, and this is the problem that they're all running into. Plus, we see foreclosures in the main areas in the Northeast and on the West. They're all increasing. The percentage of foreclosures going up. What else are we seeing? Well, manufacturing misses for the 7th month of the last 8. The outlook completely plunges right now. March data once again fell below the consensus. The general business conditions 6 months ahead fell by the most since October 2011 to its lowest since July 2013. So again, this is not going well at all. And February's biggest miss on more auto inventory stacking. Again, we understand the automobile is producing cars like crazy. They are channel stuffing. They're pushing more and more cars onto the dealer lots. And guess what? The people are just not buying these cars. And what we're seeing is a 7.4% surge in motor vehicles, the biggest in at least 6 months, which are already sitting at record levels of absolute inventories and the highest inventory to sales since the financial crisis. Indexes for consumer durables and consumer non-energy non-durables moved up 2.1% and 0.9%. And again, the production of automobiles jumped 4.6%. Of course, we got to make these GDP numbers look good. We got to show that there's manufacturing going on, even though all of this is completely fake and it's a complete illusion because all these cars are just sitting on the lots. No one's coming to purchase them, and this is the main problem that they're having. Now, all of this information will become completely irrelevant. Why? Because in 11 days, the Fed will revise the entire data series. Well, of course, to make things look better, because right now it's not looking good at all. So what do? They step in and they start manipulating all the numbers. The Federal Reserve Board plans to issue its annual revision to the Index of Industrial Production and the related measures of capacity utilization at noon on March 28, 2014. The revised indexes will incorporate data from the U.S. Geological Survey regarding metallic and non-metallic materials, except for fuels. The update will also include revisions to the monthly indicators and to seasonal factors for each industry. In addition, the estimation methods for some series may be changed. Any modifications to the methods for estimating the output of an industry will affect the index from 1972 to the present. So they're going to go back in time, revise things to the present. We saw this happen with inflation. We saw this happen with GDP, and here we are again doing the same exact thing because they need to manipulate these numbers to fit their illusion. And if it doesn't fit, they just change them. That's all they do, and they're continually doing this. And they're taking it one step further. Well, since we don't have that much manufacturing going on here in the United States, what they're deciding to do, let's just change the definition of manufacturing. Very simple. So now we'll have manufacturing in the United States because we're going to change what a manufacturer is. So what exactly are they going to do? Well, those firms that are factoryless goods producers, firms that handle every part of making their products except the actual creation of the products, those will now be called manufacturers. And again, what this does is it allows the government, the Fed, to show that there is manufacturing going on. And again, the upshot would be an overnight increase in the apparent size of the U.S. industrial sector without adding a single assembly line. This is fantastic. Backers of the change say this would give a truer picture of the nation's productive capability, because these firms still do most other functions of manufacturing, from designing goods to overseeing their production and distribution. But again, there is actually no manufacturing going on here in the country. It is over in China or in any other nation. And again, they're calling these companies now manufacturers. Why? To manipulate the numbers, to make things look better, to fit the illusion. And this is why all of this is happening. And we understand this. This is completely setting up the perfect economic storm, and all of this will implode on itself, because this cannot be sustained. They're using fake information to cover up fake information to prove that this is completely real when it's fake. And this cannot go on. It is completely impossible. Now, we have out there a new poll. It's the new doomsday poll. It says 99.9% risk of a 2014 crash. We're seeing this all over the place. I'm seeing it all over the corporate media, and I'm sure you've seen it too. And this goes on to say, with a global recession depressing corporate revenues, unsustainable profit margins, and currency translation losses spawned by a robust dollar, we can possibly see a complete meltdown of the market and a crash in around April, May of 2014. This is what they're saying to us right now. And again, we have to look around the world what's going on. We see what's happening in Crimea. We see what's happening in Ukraine. We see what's happening with Russia. We see what's happening with China. We understand the empire of the United States is spread thin all over the world, trying to maintain and keep that dollar propped up so they can get the war started. And then they don't care where it is. They just want to get that war started to cover up this entire economic collapse. This is why they continually manipulate all the data. They're trying to cover everything up because they need somehow to cover up this complete implosion of the economy. So they'll continue to manipulate, change calculations, change this, change that, pump up the market, and they'll continually do this until they get this war started. And this is what they're doing right now. Now, we understand that the college students are having a very, very rough time. They've taken out loans. They are in a huge amount of debt. They cannot pay this debt off whatsoever. There are no jobs out there. They don't have any prospects of jobs. They don't want health care. They want work. They're still living with their parents. The government stepped in and said, listen, we'll help you with the student loans. We'll make some modifications. We'll defer your payments. Maybe you won't even have to make a payment because there is no work out there. Now, even the kids that are in college, the tuition costs are completely out of control, and the students are in a huge amount of debt, and they don't have any money, and students everywhere are now so poor that they resort to food shelters to keep from starving to death. Food banks affiliated with college and university Food Bank Alliance have appeared on over 50 campuses. Other students rely on their attendance at university events where food is provided free of charge. For many, free pizza night at the inaugural events of a certain student club saves a costly trip to the grocery store. So again, they're getting into debt, going to school. They can't afford food. When they come out of school, they have a huge amount of debt. They have no job, or they got a part-time job, and they can't buy health insurance. They can't make the payments. They can't move out of their parents' house. This is not the foundation of the next generation. It is completely crumbling and falling apart. And we're seeing this all over the place. And we understand that this is being done on purpose. They understand the U.S. dollar can no longer go forward. This is why they need this special event to start this war, because they really want to reset the system, and they rather reset the system under their standards and their laws, and I'm talking about the central bankers and the government after the war, because they, in their minds, they do believe that they're going to reset the system just like they did after World War II with Bretton Woods. They started the entire system all over again, and here we are. And again, to start the system over, they do not want to have the American people armed. And this is why the UN Arms Treaty and the Dianne Feinstein gun bill are still pending in the Senate. They're waiting for that special event. But there is a new campaign out there, and it urges parents to ask questions about gun ownership before sending their child to someone else's home for a play date or a sleepover. And again, it just goes, just ask the parents if they have guns. But why not ask the parents if they have knives? Why not ask the parents if they're doing drugs? Why not ask the parents if they have alcohol? Why not ask parents if they have any type of bomb-making material? But if you notice, it's just ask them if they have a weapon. Because, again, if I did this in when I first started my reports, when I was talking about how the Great Depression and how this new depression is going to be very similar, except that they're going to have people on the streets reporting each other to DHS. This is how it starts. In New York, you have to remember, they were giving $500 reward for people who pointed out people that they believed had an illegal weapon. Here we are. These ads are appearing on all buses all over the place because they want to get people used to telling. They want people to get used to telling on others. This is how they do this. They want whistleblowers, so it's easier for them to spot these people, track them down, and get them. Okay. Now, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons were out there, and they are completely against Obamacare. And again, if you listen to my other reports, you know that I am not for Obamacare whatsoever. It is a cash grab. They don't care about your health. All they care about is raising taxes. And right now, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, they're out there, and they're giving reasons. These are the top 10 reasons not to enroll in Obamacare. The Obamacare health insurance policies cost significantly more, likely more than the penalty, which is the tax. Most people can expect to see their premiums double. Number 2, the Obamacare health insurance policies limit your choice of doctors. Number 3, the Obamacare health insurance policies limit your choice of hospitals. For example, several major state-of-the-art, internationally known cancer treatment centers are excluded. Your out-of-pocket costs will skyrocket with the new Obamacare health insurance policies doubling and tripling. The deductibles you must pay before coverage will kick in. Your medical privacy is lost when you enroll, and your medical information becomes controlled by government agencies. Your personal, financial, and health information may be seriously compromised by the security flaws in healthcare.gov website. You are at risk of identity theft by providing your personal information to the Obamacare navigators, a significant number of whom have been found to have criminal backgrounds. Enrolling in the Obamacare Health Exchange may lead to compromises of your Second Amendment rights as medical databases collect information on gun ownership. Obamacare enrollees are finding it difficult or impossible to cancel their plan if they find a better option. Number 10, Obamacare policies are basically managed care with limitations on your options and financial incentives for your doctor to restrict your care. And again, we all understand, and this is why Obamacare is not working, because people are realizing that this entire system does not help the people. Why do you think Congress, the president, were all exempt from Obamacare? Why do you think they weren't out there sitting down at the computer when they announced Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, which is the same thing? Why do you think they were not sitting in front of the computers and signing up? Because they realized that this health care is junk and they don't want it. Because if these are our true leaders who represent the United States people, they should have been out there, right there, signing up, getting their policies and showing every single American why this was good. But guess what? They didn't do it. The president, who's been pushing this, didn't even do it. He kept his other health insurance. Okay, let's head out to Afghanistan for a minute here. In my other reports, I've always talked about it, how the United States is never going to leave Afghanistan. Why? Because they have the poppy fields. They use this to create opium to sell to other countries to pay for the covert operations of the U.S. government. We also understand that Afghanistan has a huge copper mine. China is there pumping in billions of dollars into the infrastructure of Afghanistan. It is a strategic location which borders along Iran and the Russian states, so they're never ever going to leave. And we understand that the United States was trying to give a bilateral security agreement to Karzai. Karzai kept on rejecting. He wanted a certain part of it removed, and that was the allowance of U.S. soldiers to go into homes and raid these homes without any type of warrant or anything, which is quite illegal here in the United States. Well, kind of, but they're trying to, change the law and convince us that they can just come in at any time, but that's besides the point. But what has happened, and I didn't see this anywhere in the corporate media, the United States seems to have agreed on a deal with Afghanistan that will result in leaving an unidentified number of troops behind after the end of 2014. We, the United States, the central bankers, are staying in Afghanistan. They are not leaving because you know why? They need Afghanistan, they need the Middle East, they need Africa, they need Ukraine, they need Thailand, they need Tunisia, they also need Venezuela and any other nation that they can prop up the U.S. dollar. And again, this is what is happening, and again, they will never ever leave. This is strategic to them. This is not for the American people. You have to remember, the central bankers, U.S. government, are not here for the people. They are here for themselves, and this is why they're doing this right now. Now, for Russia, and I mentioned this before, they were going to let Ukraine fly over Russia to show that they do not have troop buildup, because we've been seeing a huge amount of propaganda out there saying that Russia has huge amount of troops being built up because they're going to invade, there's going to be war. But Putin, if you really look at his actions, this is not exactly how he moves. Again, if he really wanted war, he would have let the United States go into Syria, Russia would have got involved, and we would have had World War III at that point. Again, look at his actions, not the propaganda of the media. Right now, Putin has had naval officers, cities, towns all come to him. Crimea voted to remove itself from Ukraine and join with Russia without troops, without firing a shot, without having a coup or anything like that. And now Russia is saying to America and German inspectors, guess what? Fly over Russia using the Open Sky Treaty, and you can see for yourself that we do not have any type of troop buildup. And the flights will be performed on the Swedish observation plane, the Saab 340, head of the National Nuclear Threat Reduction Center. And again, they're going to fly over to verify true position of Russian troops and military equipment. Now, we understand that Yatsenyuk, which is the temporary prime minister, the acting prime minister, he was not voted in. None of the government in Ukraine has been voted in. They've been put into positions, and there has been no election whatsoever because they're very nervous. If they actually had an election, these people would be voted out, and that's why they didn't have one. Yatsenyuk visited the president, and what has been coming out of this is that he brought over some Scythian gold to the U.S., and what they're saying, it's worth about $20 billion worth of natural cultural values, and these values might become guarantees for the International Monetary Fund loan. So again, we understand that the Fed, the United States government, flew in with unmarked planes and took Ukrainian gold out of the country and flew away with it. We don't know where it went. And here we are again seeing more of the assets of the country being removed. This is what the central bankers do, the U.S. government, this is what they do. They go into each one of these countries, they take the gold, they take the natural resources, they put the country into a huge amount of debt, And this is how they proceed with every single country. And those countries that do have natural resources like oil, they are put on the U.S. dollar, and every single country then has to use the U.S. dollar to pay for that oil. And this is what we're seeing right now. Now, we all pretty much probably understand that Crimea voted to join Russia and not be a part of Ukraine anymore. And about 93% of voters in Crimean referendum have answered yes to the autonomous republic joining Russia. And again, the United States is out there saying that they will never recognize this referendum. And in a telephone call with Putin, President Obama emphasized that Crimean referendum, which violates the Ukrainian constitution and occurred under duress of Russian military intervention, would never be recognized by the United States and the international community. And this is coming from the White House statement. And again, this was not under Russian duress. If you look around at the polls and you hear what people were saying and other international journalists that were there were no Russian troops. There was no one at gunpoint. This is all propaganda to make you believe that these people were forced. But who was actually forced, and where was there an actual coup? Oh, that's right. When they overthrew Ukrainian government, when they made an agreement and they basically didn't adhere to the agreement, they just overthrew the government, forced everyone out, put the people in there as they wanted, had them start writing up and drawing up the papers to join the EU, raided the gold, shipped it out of the country, and everything is being held together with force. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, since Crimea separated and is now joining Russia, of course, they're imposing sanctions. The EU is imposing sanctions on 21 Russian and Ukrainian officials. The United States is imposing sanctions on 11 Russian and Ukrainian officials. And again, these sanctions are going to do absolutely nothing because most of the officials knew that this was coming, and most of them took their money out already. And again, this is just something they're doing to show that the United States and the EU can do something, because there's nothing left for them to do at this point because their backs are against the wall. They're trying to maneuver some type of an event to occur to get some type of war started. They've been trying to use the propaganda that Russia has been invading Ukraine. They're going to be in there at any minute. They have 200,000 troops on the borders, which is absolutely ridiculous because now they're flying over the countries with the Swiss to prove that this is completely false. And again, they need an event to move their war agenda forward because they understand this economy, the private Western central bank economy, is completely imploding on itself. Now, Russia, since the sanctions came on some of their Russian officials, Russia now is hinting it may force Ukraine into default, may ask Ukraine for its 20 billion share for ex-Soviet debt. So again, Russia holds all the cards. They have strong manufacturing. They are basically teamed up with China and other nations. They hold a huge amount of debt. They hold a huge amount of dollar reserves. And again, they could implode the economy if they really wanted to. And if you really look at this, the central bankers, the U.S. government, would actually like that because this would allow them to go to war with Russia. If Russia went ahead and said, you know what, we're dumping all the treasuries, the central bankers would probably most likely like this scenario. And they would like this because, again, they need an event to get started. They need to cover this economic collapse. They can manipulate the numbers as much as they possibly can, but after a while, fake can just cover up fake so much. Now, in another move, Putin is responding to U.S. European sanction. He signs order recognizing Crimea as a sovereign state. So that has been pushed forward. Now, of course, Obama declares that support for Crimean self-determination constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States, and hereby declare a national emergency to deal with that threat. And this is all propaganda, building this up, and of course, We're seeing this all over the corporate media, and they're trying to convince us that Russia is going to do something which we know they are actually not going to do, because they already did it. They already got Crimea away from Ukraine and to join Russia. Now, we understand in Libya, the militia pretty much, they're holding control of Libya. They hold control of the ports, and they were filling up this North Korean oil tanker, which is really not North Korean, which is really Egyptian. And this North Korea oil tanker, sailed out. They fired upon it. It was on fire, but I guess it was captured and brought back because the United States Navy commandos seized and diverted an oil tanker in the Mediterranean waters southeast of Cyprus on Monday morning, thwarting an attempt by breaking away Libyan militia to sell its contents on the black market, the Pentagon said. And of course, the central bankers, the U.S. government, is not going to allow the Libyan people to sell this oil not using the U.S. dollar. So what did they do? They sent in the Navy SEALs to get the oil tanker back. This is how desperate they are to do this right now, because the Libyan people are much stronger. They're organized. They are pushing the government, the puppet government, I should say, out of Libya. And this is the biggest threat to the central bankers and the U.S. government, because if they completely push them out and they remove the private Western Central Bank and they say the ports are open and their oil is open for anyone to come in to purchase this oil not using the U.S. dollar, this is going to pose a very big problem for the central bankers and the U.S. government and for the dollar, because most of the countries then will say, I will no longer need to hold on to this dollar because I don't need it to purchase this oil. I can use gold, I can use yuan, I can use the ruble, I can use the euro, I can use any other currency except the U.S. dollar. And right now, what's happening in Libya, its oil exports have fallen from 1.4 million barrels a day in 2011 to 235,000 barrels a day, because the Libyan government, the puppet government, does not have control over the ports. And the problem they're having is that the Libyan militia, the rebels, the people of Libya, they are getting stronger, not weaker. Now, there is a report that the U.S., the central bankers, are now building up ammunition, military assets in Iraq. Because you have to remember, these Middle East states here, these Middle East countries, all have the same problem. They were taken over by the central bankers, U.S. government. A puppet government was put into place, and they've been selling the oil using the U.S. dollar. The people who are the Al-Qaida terrorists, which are really the people of the country, they're fighting to get their countries back. They're trying to push out the central bankers and the U.S. government, and they've been pushing and pushing and pushing. So the United States has reported accelerated armed deliveries to Iraq. The U.S. Embassy said Washington was speeding up weapons and ammunition shipments to Iraq amid the Sunni revolt in the Anbar province. The U.S. recently delivered 100 Hellfire missiles to Iraq. Since mid-January, more than 11 million rounds of ammunition, thousands of machine guns, sniper rifles, M16s, and M4 rifles, thousands of flares, grenades, and other weapons have been delivered to Iraq. And again, why are they doing this? Because they are going to make a push to see if they can push all of these people back, because they are starting to take control of these countries. And this is why they've been building the forces up in Jordan. This is why we have the Arab nations, Israel, the United States central bankers, all preparing to make a strike into Syria. And this goes on to say, this report, the United States looks forward to working closely with Iraqi leaders and military commanders to determine and address additional critical equipment needs over the coming weeks. The U.S. Military Central Command has been discussing Iraqi participation in regional exercises. Now, to build up the propaganda that Al-Qaida is getting stronger and bigger, and they're in lone wolf groups in America, and they're going out to Syria, and they're coming back radicalized. And this is not just happening in the U.S. They're saying it will be happening throughout Europe and in the U.S. And right now, U.S. reports spreading Al-Qaida footprint in North Africa. The U.S. intelligence community has determined that Al-Qaida was expanding in North Africa. So I guess they need more troops and more military weapons down there to push the people of the country back, because they need to maintain control there. And again, we're seeing the same exact thing happen all over the place. This newly formed group poses a growing threat to Western interest in North Africa based on the network's record of sophisticated attacks against Western mineral and energy interests in Niger. And again, we're seeing the same thing. You touch our natural resources, we are going to push you back and kill you if we have to. And this is what we're seeing all over the place. Now, coming back to this Grid X drill that we had during the fall of 2013, again, this was a test to see if companies, government offices, electrical power grid, and infrastructure systems are capable of diverting a cyber attack. And guess what? The North American Electric Reliability Corporation reported that its recent GridX2 exercise has highlighted the fact that nearly all the utilities which took part in the two-day drill last November, a drill aiming to test the preparedness of the U.S. power grid to withstand cyber and physical attacks, admitted that their planning for such attacks was completely insufficient. They cannot protect themselves against any type of attack whatsoever. And again, we know why this is being done. And again, more than 2,000 companies and organizations from across the United States, Canada, and Mexico participated in this exercise. So they are saying that everything is completely vulnerable. We have no protection whatsoever to this false flag event. And this is exactly what it's going to be. And I discussed this on Friday, that yes, the country will be brought to its knees. We will be put into darkness. And what else is fueling this? Well, millions of U.S. government computers, including those at military and intelligence agencies, will still be running Windows XP after April 8th, even though Microsoft will no longer be providing security patches for the operating system. The Department of Homeland Security and the White House Office of Management and Budget alerted agencies in April of 2012 that they needed to urgently transition from Windows XP, and they didn't. And of course, the propaganda is coming out right now that Iranian, Chinese, Russian, Syrian hackers have previously penetrated computers running XP. Well, of course they have, because they know exactly where these cyber attacks are coming from, which they don't, because they bounce these attacks off many different servers. They only know the last place that they're coming from. But again, they're building up the propaganda that we will be hit, and the government doesn't want to do anything to any of these systems because it makes it easier for them to pull off this false flag. And it goes on to say that cyber attackers tend to lie in wait for vulnerable end-of-life operating systems to gain access to entire networks. Now, I think this was Friday or maybe on Thursday, I reported that Iranian nuke site was hit with sabotage, and they're finding out that there are new acts of sabotage in the Iraq nuclear reactor facility. And again, intelligent inspections of the nuclear facilities indicated that some pumps of the second circuitry of the IR-40 project had undergone mechanical operations in a bid to disrupt the routine work of the power plant. It is unclear how these faulty pumps made their way into the reactor, and Iranian authorities have yet to name the contractor who imported them. So the vulnerability was in the pumps and in the construction of this equipment that they received. And again, this was sabotage from the beginning. And why would they want to do this? But of course, to show that they shouldn't be building nuclear plants, or to show that they're have it blow up and say this was a nuclear weapons depot or something like that. And again, this is not about nuclear weapons at this point. This is to get into Iranians' banks, to get control and put all their resources on the U.S. dollar, and to set up a private Western central bank in this country. And if they can, replace the government of Iran. And if they can't do it this way, if they can't do it with the P5+1 talks, they will do it another way, because their goal has always been the same. It has not changed whatsoever. And right now, we are seeing more propaganda about terrorism. It's amazing. Al-Qaida magazine calls for car bombs in U.S. Al-Qaida sounds a call for its terrorist followers to strike the United States and other Western nations with car bombs, and even suggests times and targets. The magazine manifesto suggests U.S. targets such as Washington, D.C., New York, Northern Virginia, Chicago, and Los Angeles, as well as locations in Great Britain and France. Again, they are doing this just like they've been doing in the past. They are building up the propaganda because when they have this event occur, they want to make sure you understand where all this is coming from. Washington and New York have a symbolic importance, the article says, because D.C. is the seat of the federal government and New York is the former capital and currently the country's financial, cultural, and transportation and manufacturing center. Chicago is the second largest financial center in the United States and is a major transportation hub. So again, we see what is happening, and this is why the stock exchange, the NASDAQ, the BATS, the Chicago Mercantile, they all have kill switches in place. This is why all this is being prepared. This is why they had the Grid X2 drill. They are preparing for what is coming. They understand that they need to create this event to cover up this entire fake economy. It is a complete illusion. They're continually manipulating all the calculations and how they calculate GDP, inflation, unemployment, and they need a way out of this. And they're continually manipulating it, creating this perfect storm because the economy is so fake now and the stock market is hitting all-time new highs and going higher, and we can just tell from all of this, it is a complete repeat of 1929, but a lot worse. And we know what happened. We know what happened after the Depression. At that time, they started World War II. The same thing is going to happen now. They're a little bit more sophisticated. They can do this by using cyber attacks, by cutting the power and bringing down the financial institutions, because now the economy is worse off than it has ever been. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.